Have you pressed the button?
Yeah, I have now. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I think that was my fault. I don't think I pressed the right button.
Thank you.
But I have done now. Can everybody see us? Sorry, thank you for jumping in there, Isobel. Can everybody see us on video? If somebody can put something into comments just to tell us they can see us, then that would be fantastic. There is a bit of a delay, so catch up. I might have to get all of that.
Did they hear? That's fine. Did they hear us, or do you want me to start? Do you know if they heard us initially?
I can't tell. I have to wait for them to come.
No, they didn't. Right. Okay. So do you want me to start again?
Yeah, I think we will. So I'll
just to be on the safe side.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, guys. You can all see us now? Yeah. See 4 faces. That's a good start. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. The comments are flying through. So very warm welcome to the Society of Authors. Sorry, that wasn't, I think, entirely my fault for not pressing the button properly. We were all getting underway, but you couldn't see anything. My name is Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin, and I am here with 3 amazing ladies who are all managing directors of their companies and who have a lot to offer to us. Also how the roles of their clients have changed. So I'm just going to ask you to wave again, ladies. So Isobel, now you're at the top, you've moved over. Isobel Dixon, who is MD of Friedmann. We've got Catherine Clarke down the bottom, who is MD of Felicity Bryan Associates, and Lola Williams, who is the MD and founder of New Wonder Management. And we were having a great conversation here all on our own about how things have changed for actors, because obviously writers, the sort of landscape has changed completely for writers in terms of events, and an awful lot of them got cancelled, and that had an impact on their income. But I was just asking Lola about how that's affected actors, because it's a really, really big thing in your business, isn't it? So if you wouldn't mind just reprising, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was saying the impact has just been as significant for writers and other creatives, for actors as well. We had theatres closed midway, we had theatre festivals that were upcoming, people were preparing for, they were rehearsing for, we had that cancelled, we had filming suspended immediately, rescheduled of theatre productions, and ultimately the impact for actors was no work, and also casting directors as well, who suddenly found themselves without any work as well. But the impact, apart from the loss of work, it's because the future is so uncertain. The impact has been quite significant, where we've had actors asking, what does social distancing mean for our industry? When is the theatre going to start? When are production going to start? And these are questions from an agency point of view that we're now having to make sure we at least understand what the theme of direction is. And we've had, as an agency, we've had lots of meetings, Zoom meetings, with producers, filmmakers, and writers. And the emerging theme has been that we are moving to a virtual world. And because of that, as my role as an agent, I need to actually tell the actors, what does this mean for you? For example, we have castings that are coming through where they're specifically asking actors to have a home equipment at home, studio equipment, lighting, etc., which under the normal situation you wouldn't normally have that. I'll give a very good example. We had an actor who landed a role for a feature film, and she shot the film 2 days ago in her own home with lighting, with all the equipment, and the director Skyped and directed her. Now that is a brand new world for actors. So in terms, from an agency point of view, we really have to equip our actors in terms of the knowledge so that they can put themselves in a prime position so they don't lose out. And another area that we're looking at, obviously, actors are very versatile. So some of them are writers, producers, directors. So we're almost saying, right, okay, let's focus more on your other skill set as well. So from an agency point of view, we're getting them out there, we're promoting their work, we're saying they're also writers, they're also directors and producers. So there is almost an expansion of the role for actors, not just turning up and doing their part on set, but almost understanding more behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our role is,
it's just very interesting, isn't it, to hear how you're developing those roles and how people are pivoting effectively, really trying to investigate new areas and new ways of doing things. And I think that's the same sort of in the writing world too. It's very interesting that you mentioned the Zoom meetings there, because obviously we're all on Zoom now, we're all online. Catherine, your agency decentralised some time ago. You moved from London to Oxford when Felicity sort of first set up. How are you finding being sort of separated from London from the Zoom meeting situation? Are you finding it just a natural lead on from not being in London to start with, if you like?
Well, in fact, the agency's been in Oxford since 1988, so that's quite a long time now. And I joined in 2001. So Felicity, who is the founder and chair, was with Curtis Brown as a director, but she was commuting. She had 3 young children, and just thought, I can't sustain this. So what can I do? I'll set up my own agency outside London, and that at the time was an extraordinary, innovative, risky thing to do, but she's very entrepreneurial. So she set up in a little flat in the north of Oxford, and but brought 30 people with her. So actually, we've been sort of very well established in Oxford, and but with a very international outlook. But obviously, the business, in fact, the agency is now 11 people. There are 5 agents and 6 admin staff. So when we saw this coming, we were, as everybody else, it was just a matter of time before we went into lockdown. We just decided that, most of us live at least within a 10-mile radius of the office. A few people take public transport to come in. I'm very lucky because I can walk. But we just thought we've got to make sure that we can all remotely, work from home, and get all the systems and the access to the system set up, WhatsApp groups so that we can be in touch with each other all the time. And we just set up Zoom meetings. So we have far more actual meetings as an office than we had when we were in the physical office.
It's interesting to hear that impact. I think a lot of deals are done and conversations are had, certainly on the publishing end. I don't know if this is true for you as well, Lola, in your business, but at social events and parties and stuff like that. Isobel, are you finding that has had an impact on what you're doing? Are you able to chat in that same sort of relaxed way through Zoom, or are you developing new ways to have conversations?
I think in terms of being in contact with publishers and connecting with publishers, a lot of our contact would have been on the phone as well as the lunches and the parties. But agents don't just lunch and party.
Well, no, obviously, yeah.
We're making a concerted effort to reach out, obviously, to editorial teams around the whole world. In fact, so I have Zooms all times of the day. We're having discussions with publishers in Ireland, with Australia, America, and of course locally. The key thing being managing not just different time zones, but also people's childcare needs, which is one of the big impacts in lockdown is people at home having to juggle childcare. And so what I am experiencing a bit is delays in reading fiction and more complex fiction from editors who are just not able to really concentrate on longer pieces of work, but are responding quickly on very, very hooky things, and also non-fiction proposals that colleagues are selling.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Lola, are you finding that you're having perhaps more meetings because you're reaching out to more than you would have done previously?
Absolutely. What's been quite interesting is casting directors and producers and directors are even more accessible now during this downtime, if you like. And we've had lots of Zoom meetings to the point where you're almost zoomed out. But the information that has been shared has been so valuable. And we all recognize that we're almost, to use the phrase, we're all in it together. But the truth is we are all in it together. So yes, indeed, we've been able to network, if you like, more so now than when we're all busy, and we're so busy that we don't have time to forge new relationships. Now we're forging new relationships because we've got the time to do that.
That's really interesting. It's a real positive upside, I think, from this new way of working, isn't it?
If I can just add, I couldn't agree more with Lola. I think Catherine and I are both, I'm the president and Catherine's vice president of the Association of Authors Agents. And we've really found the forging of new connections and talking about issues about lobbying around copyright and authors' rights and authors' needs, that people have been more open and more responsive perhaps to talk about issues and their solutions than they might have been before the crisis. And of course, we have a very good, strong relationship with the Society of Authors there as well.
Absolutely, I was going to say they're certainly buzzwords for the society, and working very actively in those areas. I think that the whole way of the way we're communicating has changed using these technologies, and I think that's really, really interesting. And the impact going forward, I think, will be interesting, because I don't think we're necessarily going to go straight back to a new normal. I mean, how do you feel, ladies? Do you feel that there's going to be a mixture of this digital?
Yeah, I think from an agency point of view, what we will see is actors not necessarily going into London for face-to-face auditions, and I think there's a positive for actors who do not live in London. So before, you'd have an actor coming all the way from Liverpool, Manchester, spending loads of money to go for an audition in London, an audition that usually doesn't take more than 10, 15 minutes. Whereas now they have the opportunity to Skype, you have a virtual audition, which is saving them money. So, and then on the other side, for casting directors, as we know, casting directors have to rent the space to have face-to-face auditions with actors. But so there's a cost saving almost. So I don't think we're going to revert back to norm, even when lockdown completely eases. I think the industry will almost align to this new norm, because there are opportunities also for savings as well, and to make things easier for actors and producers and casting directors.
Yeah, it's interesting. Catherine, you had very much an international base when the agency was set up, and didn't see London as the core, I suppose, of publishing. I'm just going to say to people that Isobel was having problems with her video earlier, so if you're not seeing her now, then we have her lovely icon on stead. I'm sure she'll be back to us in a second. So sorry, Catherine,
don't worry, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Audio still on. So Catherine, in terms of you reaching out and the international, that this whole thing about foreign travel and that type of thing, are you finding that the using Zoom and this modern technology is making things easier for you?
Yes, because you can, mostly because a lot of people are just at home. They are generally more available. I mean, obviously, as everyone's discovered that the new normal includes a lot of Zoom meetings. So, you're scheduling quite a lot, but generally, you will probably be able to get more people together in a room or on a screen discussing something very kind of in a very focused way than would have been possible to organise before. So I suppose I see my co-agents in New York, for instance, more often. I'll have a couple of Zoom meetings a week, often with the authors, the clients that we share, which never normally happens. We would never or rarely meet them together in the same physical space. And I find that's it's very good for moving things forward very quickly. I mean, I've got a Zoom meeting tomorrow night with my US agent and one of my historian writers to talk through a new proposal in some detail, which otherwise would have been very difficult to do, and it's now possible. So there is definitely an upside to this, and certainly we've, as an agency, we've talked to our colleagues in China, our sub-agents in China and in Taiwan. I've plugged into, as Isobel has, a webinar about German bookselling and how that's been opening up, after lockdown. Yeah. So you get much more of an international perspective than we did before, without, going to Frankfurt or going to New York.
It's really interesting to hear that those positives are there and that those conversations are happening, perhaps more so than they ever were before. You guys work in different genres completely, and I know, Catherine, you've got a really interesting bearing. You represent Meg Rossoff, and her book How I Live Now has had a huge resurgence in popularity, and you've been setting up some videos with your authors talking about sort of how they're coping with the sort of the new normal. I think that's something that this digital world and everybody being online is another opportunity that we can be sort of looked at. How do your authors respond to that when you first ask them to do that?
Well, in fact, it's less having our authors on video than some of them responding to, and this was very early on, sort of, the week after we all had to go home and sit under lockdown, how realizing that everybody was having to completely recalibrate everything and how they were thinking about everything and living, and so one or two who had books coming out, or had something very specific to say, we invited Meg, because the idea came from How I Live Now, and we launched a series that we've sort of put on the website called How We Live Now. So people have written in very, very different ways. But we've come to the point where I think everyone's feeling there's a sea change, and we're not so much looking at how we live now, but how we are going to live in the future. And that sort of forward looking is what we've been talking about, what new things have emerged from this, and what new things we want to emerge from this and stay. And so, we're going to end that series with a piece by my client, A.C. Grayling, the philosopher, who published a piece on Penguin's website about Stoicism, a kind of philosophy of how to live well. And so we're going to post that almost as our sort of the last piece in that series, just because it's about looking forward and hanging on to the good that has come out of this, as well as the challenges.
That's interesting. I think it's very interesting to hear. Yes, it's that looking forward and where are we going to be? Isobel, in terms of what publishers are looking for and your role as a fiction, because obviously your area is primarily, I mean, Catherine does children's fiction and you do non-fiction too, but in the fiction world, is there anything particular the publishers are looking for, do you feel, at this stage? Do we know? It's like looking at a magic ball, isn't it, to see bear in mind that publishing works a year in advance, what's happening? What do you feel the mood is?
Well, I mean, initially people were saying absolutely what they did not want to see were pandemic thrillers. And of course, we are seeing a lot of those arriving in our inboxes as proposals to our agents. I can't say we've taken any of those on, although we do have an author, Dion Mayer, who wrote a brilliant book called Fever back in 2016 about the impact of a coronavirus in his dystopian novel. But we're hearing that people are looking for feel-good things, really absorbing family stories, romance, of course. But we're actually selling things across the board. But I would say the pace has been slower. Certainly, I think people have been saying they've been struggling to get to respond to things as fast as they did otherwise. That said, we've had some auctions, so it's a mixed bag. And in terms of things having changed, I think we're still doing exactly the same job in difficult times, but times are never really easy as an agent. You're always having to work around different challenges, and think about what might suit each individual book and how to match it to individual editors. So I don't see the skills having changed that much, even though the landscape has got a lot bumpier.
It's very interesting. And Lola, for you, are you seeing in the things, I don't know how your industry is, I think your industry is probably a bit faster, is it? Are you seeing that same reflection in things that are needed to flip the screen?
Yeah. I'll say initially when the lockdown happened, everything literally stopped, literally. But I think over the last few weeks, we have seen almost a trickling of castings coming in. And it's quite interesting that Isobel was saying that publishers don't really want writing on, regarding the pandemic. Well, with castings that have been coming through for actors, especially commercial castings, it's all about the pandemic. And the reason for that is because actors with their families can now film at home and talk about how they're feeling. And so you've got brands and products trying to get commercials out that way. So there is a trickle effect of work coming through. But I think in terms of theatre, that will obviously take a little while. We are aware that mainstream services like Netflix are going to start, to resume filming soon. So I think within the next few weeks, there will be an uptake of screen work coming in and not necessarily acting work for stage.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and that's the thing. I've seen that a lot of theatres though have been putting stuff online. I've now forgotten the name of the theatres. There's one in particular one in London. I was really impressed with what they were doing. Yeah. Omnibus, is it?
The Globe had something online.
Yeah, and they seem to be moving very much into that space to try. I mean, obviously they need to keep going. Particularly the Globe needs to keep audiences attending, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
No, it's
to keep the conversation going. Yeah.
That's it, definitely. And Catherine, for you, in terms of what people are looking for, are you finding that same for particularly in children's would be your fiction end, wouldn't it?
Yes.
What people are looking for?
I think, it's certainly pretty active. The children's publishers are, once everyone has settled into this new world, and we're getting emails from commissioning editors saying, we are open for business, please send me submissions. And
that's brilliant. You've literally just answered a question that's popped up into the site here about are people looking for new things? Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes, and I think my impression, I'm not submitting a lot of children's fiction at the moment. I've got quite a lot of adult non-fiction. What is coming across loud and clear is that the non-fiction publishers have signed up the people they want to write about this pandemic.
Okay.
And they tend to be the authors they already publish. Who are commenting on that. And so naturally there's been this huge search in proposals for books on COVID, the biology of it, the epidemiology, etc. Some of those are being signed up, but I think there's already a fatigue setting in on that. And what people are looking for is something that sort of transcends where we are now and is looking forward. And so, like the children's publishers who are, I know that, there are auctions going on there as well. But on the adult nonfiction side, there are definitely there's a lot of interest in books about, the deep history of the earth, where does humanity come from? Books about biology and the cosmos, grand sweeps of history. And it's almost as if, that there's a hunger for a sense of perspective to take us out of the situation we find ourselves in, so we can put it in a context and begin to look forward as well. So that's definitely what I'm finding. People want, there's definitely more emphasis on the platform that the authors bring with them, and that is likely to be Instagram but that they already have a ready-made profile that the publishers can tap into. And that's always been the case, but that's been intensified.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amplification of those sort of quick solutions for publishers. So it does mean a little bit more ingenious and agile work from agents in how you place things and how you angle them. But I agree with Catherine, the big questions. People have time to think about these big existential questions on the one hand, and people have used the word escapist a lot, and I see out of the corner of my eye some questions asked about that. But for me, the real word is about absorption. It's about being absorbed in something, which is a kind of escapism, but people really want, I think, the quality to really just be taken to a different world, either really to a new location or a new existence through what they're reading, or to have those answers to big questions. James Daunt at the Independent Publishers Guild conference today spoke about the fact that they're selling a lot more books on the positive side of human values.
Kindness, yes.
Kindness
and wellness.
And nature, of course, as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I think there are themes that you're going to see coming through fiction as well, and that fiction publishers are going to want. We're getting lots of questions along those lines. And actually, I just wanted to mention, when you're talking about social media platforms, Isobel, you're a poet as well, and the poetry has experienced a huge surge in terms of things using through things like Instagram, hasn't it? Insta poetry, and it's really
poetry's been experiencing a huge surge time and time again. But
it's I think it's very interesting. It's really, I feel it's really reaching new people and perhaps a younger audience. And you're seeing that. Sort of
and I think, of course, just the Society of Authors spoken word group, the Poets and Spoken Word group, does fantastic work, and Poets for the Planet did great things, and now they've got this new campaign for Begin Afresh, using the wonderful lines from that great Philip Larkin poem begin afresh, which I think will produce lots of interesting conversations, and they're wonderful quality poets writing and speaking. And yeah, a lot of poets and authors across the board who perhaps aren't as agile and adaptable as I'm saying agents are, have to adapt to the new world quite fast. I've been persuading clients who are quite camera shy that now is really the time to just use their phones, use their computers, put those short videos together, because it makes such a difference for us to be able to share the author directly internationally at a time when we can't get them there in person. And as Lola said earlier, this is actually something we should have been doing long ago. You know, people traveling right across the country and across the world, sometimes for very, very short spaces of time to be present. We can do so much more now and be kinder to the planet with it.
Yeah, I think that's just, I mean, the whole sort of theme here is very much coming through is being able to utilize these new technologies and not seeing them as hampering us at all. So I think that's probably a really good moment to try and switch these questions. I'm going to try and scroll through them now without cutting everybody off. Let's see how we get on. There's been quite a few questions in terms of fiction about how the pandemic should be referenced. If you're writing a book, and I have the same problem, so please do chime in here. I'm writing a book now, for instance, that will be coming out in 2023. Somebody else is here talking about one that might be coming out in 2021. Do you reference the pandemic? How do you feel that should be dealt with in fiction? Do we write books that are set pre or post, or what would your feeling be? So it's a very vague question, I think.
Well, I think if it doesn't fit your storyline, the plot line you're already working on, you're halfway through the book, or the plot line you've got worked out, then you do best to set it in 2019, because it's going to cause all kinds of issues. And we've seen authors doing this. And I have an author who's just had to drop a very, very largely medically themed project that he was going to write, a fiction project, because he couldn't do any of the background research this year, which he would normally have done. And so he switched to a completely different plot line for the next book. People writing series is a bit of an issue, and I think you're going to see some series writers, those who incorporate it. My author Dion Meyer will certainly be making his next novel, a South African lockdown book, crime novel. But others, I think, may enter some kind of alternative universe. We live, this is what the creativity and imagination is all about. People will find different ways around it, won't they?
Yeah. Catherine, do you find that you're finding that the same with you?
Yes. I mean, I think certainly on the thing is, we're in the middle of this situation still. We're beginning to think forward. But I think there is an element of, certainly I would say in children's fiction, where, you're going to have to find imaginative ways to write and create worlds that may have parallels with what we're going through now, but aren't necessarily directly referencing it. And I think, that's children's fiction, like any fiction, is a way for readers to sort of help figure out, what they think about something. And sometimes the best way to do that is obliquely, not necessarily talking about it head on, but in a sort of a parallel way. I mean, I think what I've found with quite a lot of my writers, and this is less about what they're writing than how they're writing, is that this has meant they can, but without it's been a great tragedy in many ways that all the live events, the festivals, the school visits, the bookshop launches, all those things that sustain so many authors just dropped off a cliff. So that's not happening. But it's true for everybody. Everybody is in exactly the same boat. And so not all my authors, people have reacted in different ways. But some of them have found that falling away of that kind of distraction, if they can still survive financially, they're able to, there's a freedom to write in a way that they haven't had for a long time. And so that's been incredibly, creative for them. They haven't had to abstraction. I think a lot of people find it very hard to write anything of any length. But I have had, conversations with authors who really found that there is this sense of being able to focus because they don't have to think about so many other things and being in so many other places.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Lola, there's a question coming here for you here about film and gaming. And the Trevor's asking whether he feels that is there going to be a gap in next year because of everything having to stop. Is it going to be a better year to submit new stuff, do you think, or how's it going to...
I think there will be a delay in terms of actually recording, but what we're seeing is that there's a lot of writing being done for games. There's a lot coming through. But in terms of recording audio, that will pick up, because remember, a lot of the gaming for voiceover it's not being impacted as much as the on-set filming for actors. So voiceover audio is picking up actually much more because people are getting more creative, and we're seeing a lot of information and castings coming through. So the gaming industry will pick up, interestingly enough, actually a bit more than the acting and the screen and the theatre work. So it's positive, I think.
Yeah, that sounds
Definitely
great. It's really interesting. For authors who have, I have a foreign rights question actually I have to get to, so I'm just going to ask you that quickly in case we run out of time. We had a question in sort of before we started about foreign rights and just whether there are specific agents for foreign rights. And I think both of you guys have foreign rights departments, don't you? With Isobel and Catherine, you have foreign rights departments who handle foreign rights for different authors. Isobel, do you want to just give us a quick whistle-stop tour of how foreign rights work in about 2 minutes?
Yeah, well, so certainly I think in most agencies have in-house foreign rights people, or the agents are directly selling the foreign rights, and we very involved with that at Blake Friedmann. I think in terms of anyone, I think I saw the question before, was also to do with specializing. Do any agencies specialize just in foreign rights? And there are some who do that. But on the whole, an agent wants to represent an author for the complete 360 degrees and hopefully long term. It's a long game, and it's a relationship business. So we're generally seeking to represent someone and sell them in every single format and market that we can forever, frankly.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, the same for you with your foreign rights.
Yes, in fact, we work very closely with one of the specialist foreign rights agencies in London, Andrew Nurnberg Associates. So they handle all our European translations and China as well. So, but we work; they're like colleagues with us. But we still, in the days when you go to book fairs, we as agents still go to book fairs, and we still have very strong relationships with with foreign publishers. It's just that it's a sort of two-pronged approach.
Excellent. And are you getting an awful lot of submissions? There's several questions come in about the number of submissions you're receiving in lockdown. How is your inbox looking, Isobel?
It's pretty much the same. I would say it's been really, really steady throughout. I have noticed a few people dusting off the manuscripts that they sent us a few years ago and resending them, which people do sometimes do.
You won't remember them. Hopefully
they will have been improved. And I have a long memory, so yeah, no, it's there's a lot on the go, and we have a number of agents at Blake Friedmann, my colleagues, Kate Burke, Juliet Pickering, Sam Hodder, and we all share things. So our advice is always pick the one agent that you think is most likely to like your work, having looked at our profiles on the web, and send it to us. But we do share things that are promising with appropriate colleagues. We work very collaboratively on that.
Excellent. And for you, Catherine, how's your inboxes? I mean, now is just as good a time to submit as any other. Really,
yes, absolutely. In fact, we have if you go to the Felicity Bryan Associates website, there's very clear instructions about how to submit, and we have a wonderful submissions person who also handles all our social media, and he's the only man in the agency out of 11 women. So he's looking at all the submissions, and he knows all of our individual agent tastes. So he will be sort of filtering and passing everything that he thinks we ought to see, so we do look at everything. But yeah, he's telling us that it's sort of it's steady, as Isobel is finding, a slightly different shift in, it's predominantly fiction, but we are seeing a little more non-fiction coming in as well.
Excellent. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that some of those questions, I don't know if you find this, Lola, as well, with people asking about approaching you. A lot of people ask, what's the best time? What's the window? What time to avoid? And I just think that one can spend so much time being distracted by that, when really the most important question is you've got to make your book the best book it possibly can be, and ensure you've let it rest and read it through again, and followed the submission guidelines and then sent it in. That's the best thing, rather than is it this Friday or next Friday going to be the best date to send.
That's such good advice.
Yeah, I mean, we've had actors, ask, is this the best time to approach agents to represent them? And I've said, well, there's no other time. This is the time when there's less work. So please submit yourselves and ask for representation from agents, and the number of agents have taken on new people, even with the lockdown. So, there's no time like the present.
Yeah, it's a long game. We're all looking to the future. People need stories, and they deliver those stories via the stage and theatre and film, as well as the books and audio, which of course is doing well in this market now as one of the digital formats that reaches people. But stories are here to stay, and we need to sell them.
Definitely. One of the things we were speaking about yesterday was audio, and how Lola's team are really having to bring in home studios and doing all sorts of things. And that's very much one of your roles, isn't it, to try and teach people how to do that in the audio world.
Yeah, I think absolutely. One interesting. I just remembered something. Intimate coordinators who manage actors in terms of sexual scenes on set. What we're seeing is that scriptwriters are having to rewrite the episodes to remove some of the intimacy scenes, which is quite interesting moving forward for the role of an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
So as an agent, I'm having to also think about that impact on that particular role, because it will take a while before intimate scenes return in terms of filming those scenes.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see how everybody's roles are changing and developing, and using new technologies, and then having to cope with the way things have changed. I'm just looking through to see how the other questions are coming through. I mean, the worlds are very, very closely aligned. Obviously, film, TV, books. Obviously, these guys have got stories coming through which are going through to your people, Lola. So I think it's a very enmeshed world, and it's great to have an opportunity like this to be able to chat to people right across the horizon, right the way from children's and non-fiction with Catherine through to you, script and screen, Isobel with fiction, because it's that melding of story.
Just to note that I also do non-fiction as well. I do
non-fiction too. Sorry, yes, as well. I mean, Blake Friedmann. I mean, all the agencies really do everything, don't they? So I mean, that's one thing for people who are looking to submit. Obviously find the agent that is relevant to them within the agency, but be aware of the fact that most agencies do everything. So if they need to do their research, don't they, to find out what your specialities are. Now, I've just got a question here about do we approach actors to read for our scripts? I think that's somebody who's looking to submit scripts. Lola, in your world, how do people go about submitting? Do they? How does this?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
So they were asking about whether they can approach actors to read their scripts. So if somebody's writing scripts, where?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely, yes, absolutely. So one of the key themes that we've been talking to actors is collaboration. This is the time to collaborate more widely within the industry. So we do encourage writers to contact actors to for them to read, etc. Because this is the time to, as I keep saying, we need to collaborate more, and obviously become compensated as well for the work. But yes, absolutely, they're open to that.
I saw a question actually as well, just about somebody asking specifically, because I'd said that literary fiction editors, some of them were saying that they were having a harder time concentrating. I just want, and they asked, would that be a bad time to submit to agents now? And I think absolutely not, because agents are not. We are taking on with looking forward to the future. And I also think that editors are returning much more to normal now, you know, as things start to normalize. So we're certainly making submissions of literary fiction now, as well as all the other genres. So I wouldn't, again, hold back, because the agents need time to consider and work with the authors first before they send it out as well. So just make sure it's the best work you can send.
Absolutely. I think everybody found it quite hard to concentrate right at the start of this, didn't they? Because I think if anxiety levels are high, then it's difficult to concentrate on anything. But certainly there are questions coming in as well about whether there's going to be a big backlog and whether whether it's going to be more difficult to break in as a debut author. But I think, as you very clearly said, now is a good time. Make sure the book is absolutely ready and right before you send it. And to get your work out there, and obviously to find the perfect match. Is there anything you're looking for particularly at the moment, Catherine, just before we finish up?
Well, on the children's side, I'm always really interested in I think my heart is in sort of high impact literary novels, standalone novels. But having said that, I represent people with wonderful series as well. So I mean, really, I'm really open to anything that I just feel has a very strong voice and personality to it. So really, it's all in the writing and the sort of sense of confidence from the author. And on the adult side, I'm very interested in science and history and philosophy. And so those are really the areas that I've always, taken people on and continue to do so.
Excellent. And Isobel, for you, is that something similar?
I'm always looking for something that has great character, where the writing sings as well, every sentence, and whether that's in a very punchy, classy crime novel, page turner, or it's a more experimental literary book, the sentences have to sing. And I'm really, really keen on literary narrative, non-fiction, and unusual memoir with a theme that teaches you something as you go through it. I love to learn something new. So, for instance, a book of mine, a book called The Catalogue of Shipwrecked Books, is about Christopher Columbus's son's library. So any kind of narrative non-fiction with something really special to it attracts me, as well as a really, really absorbing, page-turning book.
Excellent. That's great to hear. And Lola, for you, what are you looking for? If we have anybody watching, are you looking for new people at the stage?
We're always looking for new talent and actors who are passionate about their work. I just want to get out there and almost sell their wares, if you like, in whatever creative form that is. So yes, our books are open at the moment, and we specifically opened our books specifically because of the pandemic, because obviously there's not a lot of work coming in. So this is the best time to reach us. And we're also looking for more diverse actors as well.
Excellent. That's fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, ladies. We have run over time just a couple of minutes, but we did start a little bit of late. So hopefully that'll be, we've answered people's questions here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and for joining the Society of Authors at Home. And I hope we'll be hearing from you all very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. I'm sorry for disappearing.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And thank you for your great questions, guys, everybody who was watching. Thank you. Now I'm going to
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.